So now that we're back again after some technical difficulties of my internet, followed by my microphone, followed by life just hates us, we're back.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, at least I can
So
say it was you and not me this time, because normally it's
yeah,
me. So,
yeah, yeah, exactly. So where were we? I believe we were talking about your campaign when the internet decided to hate us.
yes, you know, social media sites is about all I've really hit. I really have no intentions of making a campaign as far as, like most modern day political campaigners like to throw TV commercials, radio commercials. That takes a lot of time, effort, and money. And
Money.
when you're working, yeah, a lot of money. And when you work 40 plus hours as it is, finding time and effort and of course money to
Yeah,
do
money being the key
commercials.
thing.
Yeah, money being the key thing, which I hate to say that, but it is. And someone has even already asked, they're like, well, do you plan on doing donations? And I'm sitting there thinking, eventually I probably will have to, but I'm trying to delay that as long as possible because the more that I do by myself, the less I have to actually report back to the financial group of the
There.
campaign financial advisory groups. So
Yeah. Well, there we now have on the screen share your Twitter, just so everyone can see it, and its loveliness and its generic backgroundness.
yeah, I need to change that. Yeah, I was unfortunately just haven't gotten around to changing the background, but I did pretty good, I think, as far as
Oh yeah,
my avatar and the.
it's a very classy picture. I definitely like your photography. Whoever did that.
Actually, my wife took the picture, and then I, of course, photoshopped it because I'm
Nice.
putting all of my college learning abilities into making pictures. So,
You know what? You are successful, more successful than most college students, if that's the
uh,
case.
yeah, I mean, I went, 3 years in college dealing with visual communication, and there you go. That is the full extent of my job now. Dealing with graphics is making my own profile mugshot. So, but I'm enjoying I'm enjoying being able to get my voice out. I'm enjoying going out and talking to people. I've posted some questions online. I'm hoping people will comment on notes that I've posted on my Facebook and on my Tumblr. There was actually a question I posed asking people what they wanted me to basically run on. What they wanted my platform to be as far as what issues really matter to them. And everybody's pretty much focused on three things. I tend to focus more on one issue at a time, but the three issues that I've really come across is education reform in Kentucky, which is just, to me, is a fundamental thing that we really need to discuss. Um, you know, just to touch on it lightly, just this year, the governor Bashir has decided that Kentucky is going to follow suit with every other state and cut education by 6.8%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we're talking several millions dollars that are not going to be reaching you know our students now. The next two big issues that I was hit with was gun control. No surprise there. And the last one I was hit with was, of course, the economy, which is still on everybody's mind, and
Yes.
probably will be for another, you know, 4, 5, 10 years from now. So, but
Yeah. Well, especially here with gun control. I know you wanted to talk about that earlier on, but I didn't know if there was anything else about your campaign you wanted to talk about, or
um, right now there's been several issues. I've had several people make comments. as far as one of my notes that I posted on Facebook, I'm going to touch lightly on that. I posted on Facebook my ideas as far as gay marriage, gay rights is concerned in Kentucky. I had a few people that felt that I kind of dodged the question by how I responded. So, you know, it's interesting how people.
Considering what I've heard, yeah. Considering what I've heard, at least you're not Tennessee, isn't it? Tennessee that's trying to pass all these like weird, really weird, like laws that if you start, coming out as gay in the schools, and the teachers have to report it to your parents and stuff like that.
It may be Tennessee. I'm not familiar with a lot of their political run-ins, but I do believe it is Tennessee. It's either Tennessee or Missouri. I'll have to double check with it.
I'm pretty sure.
I know.
It's just like
I know here in Kentucky, even like as I posted in my notes, my personal opinion on gay rights is not my political opinion. And politically, it's really a subject that doesn't matter a whole lot in Kentucky, in the sense that Kentucky's already got a state amendment, constitutional amendment, that prohibits it. It was voted on back several years ago. I believe it's been at least 5 years ago now, that to make it a state amendment, it passed by referendum. So I feel that personally, I have nothing against, gay marriage, gay rights. But on a political level, it's already been taken care of. There's nothing that I can do once a state amendment is made. It's going to take a whole lot to get it undone. So,
yeah.
As some people will say, I'm dodging the question. I'm not really. It's already been done, taken care of. There's nothing.
It's one of those issues that there's nothing you can do about it immediately. You can state your opinion, and that's about all you can do, because at this point in time, there's not much you can really do about it.
Exactly, and I'm not trying to run my campaign based on personal, just straightly on personal ideology. I want people to realize I'm a moderate. I'm not left wing, I'm not right wing, I'm not conservative, I'm not liberal. I see myself as a moderate progressive. So instead of being the extreme of either or, I try to stay down the center line and try to take the best from both sides. But unfortunately, there's just some issues that there's not really a best of both sides. And sometimes there's not even a best of one side. So, it's a juggling act, and that I can personally say, I know that you've experienced it yourself. Everything you say, everything you do comes back to bite you one way or another. So it'll either help you or break you. And that's one thing about doing these live shows, doing these podcasts and things, was I have to watch what I say, how I say it, because now people are listening. Now people are going to say, yeah, I remember that one time. And it can make or break a campaign. I mean, my all-time favorite one that I like to quote a lot is Mr. Howard's war cry. And,
I think that's the most famous one.
And it is, and even though I enjoyed it, because I said, man, that just shows a lot of spunk. Apparently, the majority of the people thought it was a little overboard. So,
well, the mic didn't exactly.
I enjoyed the heck
favorably.
Out of it, so I enjoyed
it. Because his mic made it sound like it was some wild banshee coming out.
Yeah, the microphone, I think, added the spook effect to it. So I can kind of understand why some people were like, "Ooh,
yeah,
no, we can't do that." So,
yeah. Hopefully you'll be able to get to that 5% and maybe beyond, because I remember when I was running for office that, as soon as it became clear that I was going to be running and I was going to be on the ballot, the Republican who was running, who is the incumbent, immediately was coming to the state district representatives for the Libertarian Party and was saying, so what do I have to do to get you to put my yard sign on your front yard? And he said, and that kind of thing, that kind of scared that you might lose, and maybe it might not be me, but it's going to be someone. And it's one of those things that even if you don't win, it changes that person's opinion, so they might consider some of your views next time when they run for office. And it ended up being that he ended up supporting some of the school legislation we were putting through. We were trying to put in a limited amount of a school voucher system in the state of Kansas. So, you know, it's one of those things that you may not win the seat, you may not end up being the representative, but some of your ideas end up on the playing field.
Right, and you know, one of the good things about starting where I'm starting, this is considered kind of a lower-based office in the sense that, you know, obviously I'm not running for state senator or state House of Reps. This is, you know, basically based in the districts of Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, I think that, you know, I know what areas my district covers, and I like to say that for the most part, I have either A, lived in them, worked in them, or have friends that have remained in these areas, family that's remained in these areas. You know, I spent 8 years in retail, so I know a lot of people on the basis of, you know, being able to talk to them. So I think that once the word gets out that my name's on the ballot, I'm hoping that maybe that kind of builds momentum. But in the end, and I've already been asked, do you expect to win? No, I don't expect to win, but I do expect, you know, by me running, it does two things. First thing it does is, like you said, it will draw some of these people in my area to me saying, hey, you know, what would it take for me to get you on my side? And then, like you said, you might get something passed through that you really agree with. The second thing is, I am basically just your average day person. I work 40+ hours a week at a hospital. I go to church on Sundays. You know, it's eat, sleep, go to work, come back home, and do it all over again. So, you know, I'm not some rich guy that was born with money and then went to Harvard and come out and now I'm running for office. You know, this to me is what real politics is. This is the average day person running. You know, we've got people in office right now that I do feel might have a leg up in the whole thing because of their wealth. But you know, I'm not going to say that's the only reason why, but I do feel that this may even open a way for other people to run for office. So, and that to me is a great thing. It's just letting everybody know that even, you know, guy down the street who, you know, average day Joe can run, and he may not win, or he might. So, and that's a good thing. And I enjoy, you know, being able to be one of the first ones to say that I you know, did that I was able to run, maybe not win, but just the fact that I got out there and tried, and that's a good feeling for me.
I also know that some things that have happened when I was running in Kansas. The chair of the Libertarian Party of Kansas, he ran for governor a couple years back, and they asked him, you know, would you be able, if the opportunity was given for you to run for a lower seat, you know, would you do that? Would you go for that? And he said, of course. And next election came around for city council, and he ended up making city council. So, I mean, it's one of those things of not only running for office, but running where you have a chance of winning sometimes. It's also, you know, getting out there, and that's the thing that I've found in campaigns that I've helped with, campaigns that I've done, and campaigns that I've seen is it's also about getting your message out there, getting boots out in the field, having your volunteers going door to door, all that kind of thing. So definitely a challenge up ahead, but I definitely think that you're up for it.
Oh yeah, and I'm not able to dedicate as much time as I would enjoy to, but I feel that what time I am dedicating towards it is enough to at least get the name out, is enough to get people to come visit my Twitter page, come visit my Tumblr, come visit my Facebook page, and maybe they'll forget that they're Republican or forget that they're a Democrat for a little bit and think, this guy's registered as independent, so maybe we listen to him and see what he has to say, and who knows, maybe it'll change somebody's mind on
Definitely
how they view politics now. So
yeah, so I think we've talked quite a bit on that. I hope that you got some people who are willing to help, maybe, or the word gets out quicker to you for you, so that you can get the signatures you need. In the state of Kansas, I never ran into that thing. It was if you were running under a party, so long as you won your party's primary, there was none of that. The only time that there was a signature requirement or any sort of like money payment thing needed was for local stuff like city council, mayor, stuff like that. Different states have different things, but
right.
Hopefully that works out for you. And I know you wanted to talk a little bit on gun control, which is an interesting developments that have happened recently, is that they did go ahead and vote on that bill. It was only for they got rid of the assault weapons ban, the high capacity clips, and the only thing on the table was for I believe it was a gun registry. I may be recalling that wrong. And more thorough gun checks, which ended up not passing.
Right.
I know this was your topic, so you may have more information than I do on it.
I have actually spent quite a bit of time on Google News. I know a lot of people say, why Google News? Well, mainly because it is linked to pretty much every other news agency in the world, but also because I am very against the biased news networks of NBC and Fox and the corporate news network. Mainstream media outlets like those to me are great for watching, 30 Rock, shows, Simpsons. I'll watch that on a lot of these mainstream media networks. But as far as news, I like to find my news in places where I know that they're not obtaining large amounts of money for posting their views. So based on that, I do a lot of, I believe it's called Reuters or Reuters.
Reuters.
Reuters. Okay. See, I can't even pronounce it right. So Reuters will strike against me. But I do a lot of that. Also, the Huffington Post is another one I go to. I like going there to debate with people more so than read stories. But I have pretty much kept an eye on it from its development, simply because, as everyone knows, when this whole thing first started out, Obama comes on TV and says, I have executive orders that I expect to be followed. And within a matter of hours, every state, I think, in the union, except for those who were with him, pretty much said, we're not doing that. So we got extremely lucky on that part, because Kentucky was one of the first ones to stand up and say, hey, no, we're not, this is not going to work for us.
Sorry.
So, yeah, pretty much, they're like, no, you can't do that. When this bill came out and was proposed, several states have actually adopted some policies from it, one of those being Cincinnati, Colorado, New York, and Illinois, which have banned assault weapons, have concealed carry laws have increased to where it's practically almost impossible to even get a concealed carry license or to conceal a weapon in the first place. Other states are looking at broader control. Some, I think it was New York, even has limited, 30 rounds. That's down to 10, I think. Cincinnati, I think, has also done the 10-round clip capacity. Of course, those are northern states, and I like to say that the southern and northern rivalry is still there, in the sense that apparently they're willing to do it and we're not. But one of the great things that I've appreciated is I have been in contact with Rand Paul several times. I've sent concerns to him via his email. He's responded back in kind. He's one of the ones who filibustered.
Has it been one of those
know,
actual responses, or is it one of those like computer generated? Thank you for your time.
The first one I got, I will say, was definitely 100% computer generated, and that was acceptable to me. Just the fact that he had a computer sitting somewhere that was dedicated to that. The second one I do feel was a little bit maybe more of his, or a secretary typing it for him. I do feel that it was more personalized than it was computerized. So, I felt somewhat great about that. But I keep track of what Rand Paul does simply because I know what his daddy did, and he's after he earned a lot of points when he filibustered on several issues.
Yes.
He was even able to get Senator Mitch McConnell, who, I'm going to just go ahead and openly say it. I have never really voted for Mitch McConnell and probably never will. But and I think that's fine. But even Mitch McConnell supported him, and that to me was quite an undertaking. When it came to the gun control, he was very adamant that he would never support anything that would go against the rights of citizens to own or bear arms. I'll support Rand Paul a whole lot, and I'm not even Republican. And you know my voting history on Republicans, so yeah. But as far as the gun control thing, I was very glad to see that it got vetoed. My favorite part will always be right after it was vetoed, right after they basically said, "Nah, we're not going to have it." The anti-gun liberals, as I call them, I believe several of them screamed out, "Shame on you." I believe that was the coined phrase, "Shame on you." And Obama reiterated this by going on national television and choking up some tears, and basically showing some tears, showing some emotion, showing he was angry man. And shame on you for all those who voted against it. And the thing about that is the liberal media, and even a lot of the liberals I've debated with online, have basically indicated to me that if you don't agree with us, then we don't like you. And that was the sense that I got of this, was shame on you people who told your senators to vote against this bill. So it's like we're living in a time of a double standard, where if you agree with them, you're fine. If you don't, then instead of just accepting that this is America, it's a free country, and that you can believe what you want to, it no longer applies, and that's an unfortunate thing. The gun bill has brought to light a lot of issues as well. One of the biggest issues that we are discussing here in Kentucky, as well as in Arizona and several other states, is the effects of the federal government on states' rights. One of the biggest issues that we're having now is, since there has been a bill that passed in Arizona and several other states, I believe Kentucky has actually began to accept it as well, is that what role does the government have in dictating what the state can and cannot do? Because the states adhere to the Constitution of the United States, there are several of us, not just me, but several of us who are basically stating that, hey, the federal government for years has went against the Constitution by going above the rights that it is allowed into the Constitution. And the gun, I think the Second Amendment right that they were attempting subtly to void out, I think it basically made the states realize that we've allowed the federal government into a lot of areas that it wasn't even originally supposed to be into. And I know Kentucky and several other states have begun passing legislations to actually try to curtail that. I personally would like to see a broader bill brought up, not just dealing with the Second Amendment, but the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, which are also being scrutinized by the federal government. basically just stating that if the federal government wants to make laws, that's fine, but that the laws that it's allowed to that we have to follow are controlled not by the government itself, but controlled by the Constitution, and that will limit a lot of the federal power. But unfortunately, I don't believe that's actually going to end up working out. The federal government's very adamant about keeping the control that it's already got. The Second Amendment issue also has brought up the issue with the United Nations. I'm sure, I don't know how much you've read into that. I don't know if you've read
not particularly a whole lot. I tend to ignore the United Nations because the United Nations is one of those groups that everyone knows doesn't work, but they like to pretend it works when it comes to enforcement and things like that.
Agenda 21, I don't know if have you read Agenda 21, which is basically the elimination of private property by the United Nations. Any states who ratify, or any nation that ratifies it, they're basically stating that the United Nations controls all property, whether regardless if it belongs to the government or to the individual, that the UN has the right to basically use this property for any means that it feels is necessary. Agenda 21 also gives broader power to the United Nations. There's several other bills that the United States, with the Obama administration, that they're trying to ratify these treaties with the United Nations in order to basically help their standing in the UN. The biggest issue, and I've tried several different resources to prove that I'm wrong, because I don't like to be right about certain things, as bad as that may sound. But just within the past year, there has been an increased influx of United Nations armor, light armored vehicles, medium and heavy armored vehicles, heavy transports, medical vehicles. We're seeing an influx of, even in Kentucky, I've heard of military bases that are being situated to where the United Nations is sending in munitions, armored units. They haven't quite sent personnel in yet. I do believe that will come later on. But the United States federal government is amassing not just bullets, which I'm sure you've heard that the Department of Homeland Security just purchased 1.6 million rounds of hollow points, anti-personnel weaponry. Hollow points was actually banned for use in military combat by the UN Convention. Rumor is that they're talking about raising that. I don't know if they're going to or not. We've seen an increase in, and not just, Kentucky is one of the biggest heavy armories that we have. Fort Knox itself is a tank facility, and it houses several divisions of tanks. They're transporting several of these divisions out to other states. I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the reality is that there is proof online on credible sites that have shown large troop movements, that have shown military personnel being asked the question, would you fire on a civilian? Would you be willing to shoot your own citizens? And it's an unfortunate thing, but it is something that we have to be aware of, because the Second Amendment is getting closer and closer to attempting to be eliminated. And I think that the bill that was just now voided out is the people's response. Hopefully it maintains. There's one last thing on the thing I want to say on it, and then I'll let you have it, because I probably have talked way too long anyway. But
well, isn't this what this whole show's about? Verbal masturbation, as it's called.
There you go. I like that. I'm gonna have to remember that one. I don't know if you've seen online, but supposedly Glenn Beck, who is someone that I, for the most part, really care little about, made a statement that, despite the fact that I don't personally like him, that I will admit that I am eager to see. He has been reporting that after the Boston bombing, that there is information that he has that's been given to him through DHS, Department of Homeland Security, resources as well as personnel that state that one of the ones that they were looking at initially for the bombing has recently, they tried declaring, but he has recently been sent back to Saudi Arabia, or is getting ready to be deported back to Saudi Arabia. And Glenn Beck is going to release information come Monday if the White House doesn't do it first, he said, where come to that supposedly the Saudi Arabian man is actually an agent for the Saudi nationals. I don't know. I think it's his way of saying it's an inside job. I don't know. What I do know is that there is a lot of speculation as to what's going to be released Monday. I'm anticipating seeing what's going to be released Monday, and I feel if it's credible, if it's something, something that we can grasp. Glenn Beck basically said in his statement that this will basically decide America's fate. I don't believe one thing individual decides the fate of a nation, but I do believe there's a lot of things that one particular event can change for a nation. And if what he says is true, and there is proof, if there is or was proof that our own government conspired this as I believe they call it a flag event, to rally support for themselves. I do believe that depending on what the people, or how they react, will depend on what what happens next in our nation. Because we could either just decide, this guy's a conspiracy nut, whatever. We've been hearing this kind of rhetoric for years. We're just going to go on listening to the government. Or people are going to be highly, highly upset, highly mad, and we could either see, an impeachment process. We could see a lot of bad things coming our way, and I do believe that we will be seeing bad things coming our way anyway. But this could be an escalation. This could be the straw that broke the camel's back too. So it is, So tune in Monday for Glenn Beck, even though I can't stand the guy. See what he says. So
yeah, he's a bit eccentric. I will give him that. The only really point that I have on it, because I tend he can be that too. I preferred him before he got his little Fox News trip, because on CNN he seemed more moderated. He seemed more he focused on the issues rather than trying to make this more about emotions, because sometimes when you have this thing where you get into the emotions more rather than the facts, and you end up doing things and jumping to conclusions that aren't really there. And I think since he's had that time on Fox News, and I know now he has his own internet network kind of thing that he does, where it's his radio talk show and a couple other people that he's brought on to run shows. I think he's become more of a personality rather than an actual what's the word I'm looking for? Someone who actually is credible, I guess you could say.
Right.
But more back to the gun rights and all that. The only thing I really have to add to that is that I generally agree with you. The Second Amendment, I think, is important, regardless if you believe it's that we should have guns. Remind the government who is really in charge, and that's the people that live inside this nation. I think it's also still important and has credibility as far as your own personal self-defense, your defense of your home, your family, your possessions, your belongings, all of that. Because I had gotten into a discussion with another friend of mine named Michael, who is more of a liberal and believes that the Second Amendment is outdated and needs to be revamped, redefined, and personally, even that's my opinion when I talk with him is like, even if you don't believe that you think the government is fine and that, you know, even though that there are some mistakes that our government makes as far as our liberties and other things like that, that even if that is true and even if you believe space for the Second Amendment, not just as defense against the government, but defense of yourself against people who would do you harm. And I think that's an argument that is missed sometimes when you talk about the Second Amendment. It's not just about, you know, you should have the right to bear arms because your government can be tyrannical, but I mean, you have the right to your own life, your own possessions, and being able to defend yourself against people who would want to cause you harm.
Right, and you know that's
I don't know if there's a
there's a lot of there's a lot of liberals that I've dealt with on the Huffington Post and several other websites that I like to debate on. And I say debate because I like to debate. Unfortunately, there are several who don't debate. They just simply state their opinions and are, you know, just happy, I guess, that they stated them. I'm not sure, but and there have been people that have actually come to me and have said, you know, don't you think that there are some of them laws that are outdated? Some of them, you know, like the Second Amendment, obviously is what they're referring to. That, you know, and their thing is, well, it's okay for you to have a hunting rifle, and then I have to explain to them that hunting has never been the issue. I don't believe that anyone would say hunting has ever been an issue when it comes to gun rights. Obviously, some people, not I, but some people still hunt with bows and arrows and crossbows, and which, again, if you can shoot a crossbow or a regular bow and hit something, more power to you, because I cannot. I've tried. So, you know, I'm going to stick with my firearm. But it's just, you know, I've heard people say, you know, times have changed, people have changed, society's changed, we need to change the laws to fit society. The problem with that is, and this is actually something that a person who has no political background come to me and said, you know, basically, you know, people, how did they put it? People don't realize that farmers with military-grade weapons is what made this nation possible anyway. And I kind of agree, even though back then they pretty much military-grade weaponry was the same musket that was used for hunting. So, you know, but nowhere, I feel that the Constitution, while it is an older document, I do feel that it provides us with what we need to maintain our country, to maintain our nation and our freedoms. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it may not particularly say in there assault weapons are allowed, because obviously we didn't have assault weapons, you know, in the 1800s. 1700s, you know. Yeah. So
that would have really changed some things.
Yeah, that I do believe that the Brits would have won that war if they had assault weaponry. So, you know, we would still be part of the UK, eating crumpets and drinking tea at noon. So, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, because I like tea and I like crumpets. So, but
I've scones personally, but on that whole note of crossbows and bows and arrows, this would be my roommate's. It's pretty nice, I think, and I can actually get the pull on it, surprisingly enough. I doubt I could be accurate with this thing, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing is I could probably pull, but don't expect me to actually hit anything, because I've seen my aim with a bow, and it's definitely takes some practice, and you have to be, I think you have to be naturally good at it to some extent, and I'm just not naturally good at it. So, but you know, liberals will lead you to believe that we live in a civilized society, and that for this nation to be a civilized society, we have to get rid of guns. And the unfortunate part about that is that's a pipe dream. I'm sorry, the whole concept of a civilized society in general is just a pipe dream. There's always going to be somebody out there who's willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. And, you know, so giving up your guns, I don't know if that means we're going to go back to swords. So.
Well, on that note of giving up your guns, they're not about giving up their guns. They're just about you giving up your guns. They're quite all right with the police having the guns. They're quite all right with the Army having guns. They just don't want you to have your guns.
And, you know, and I think that's, you know, I think their thought is, I mean, I would personally love to believe that I live in a society to where I could give up my gun and, you know, not feel like I have to have it. But unfortunately, I know the truth, and the truth of the matter is that there is always going to be somebody who can get a gun. The bad guys do not follow rules, and that's something that I always find funny when people debate. In fact, I've reposted some stuff on my Facebook page where people have said, you know, they illegalized drugs, and no one does drugs now. They exactly. You know, that was their way of saying, yeah, okay, you want to illegalize guns, fine, but guess what? People are still going to have them. It's just who has them.
Yes.
You know, if you take my gun away, that's not going to change the fact that the bad guy who now knows that every gun's taken away can go buy a gun illegally through the black market that we know exists, and, you know, break into your home, rape your wife, kill you, your children. You know, that's the most gruesome thing that I can think of at this point in time. And, you know, and the sad part is that liberals are okay with that. I think they, as long as the guns are out of people's hands, I guess they're fine with it, and that scares me.
That's definitely for sure. I don't really have much to add to this because, for the most part, with you know, maybe a few exceptions, I mean, I agree with you. I'm not so totally afraid about the UN because I've watched the UN do things. They're very ham-fisted about it. When they go out for their little peace organization things that they try and do, maintaining peace in areas, they're very shitty, to be frank. I mean, maybe that's to my detriment that, I mean, I don't see the UN as a threat, but, I mean, I've been to Model UN. I know how the UN works. I've seen the UN work. I've watched the UN work, and they don't work. Let's be honest here. If the United States left the UN at any point in time, would the UN really have the power and authority that it did? Because let's be honest, the reason why the UN can say and do everything it does is because they can then send the US to go enforce their policy. And if we didn't back them, it's the same thing that happened with the League of Nations. I mean, their authority comes from the guns, tanks, and weapons they have. And if they don't have those things, then who's going to enforce their policy? Nobody.
That's true. That's true. I don't think the UN's more the problem. I think the problem right now would be the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, which I think, if I remember correctly, you have intimate knowledge of as well from several podcasts ago. I'm starting to have
the podcast where I basically was called a shill for the government for believing that 9/11 wasn't an inside job, and so contacted the DHS to ask if I could get my money for being the government shill that apparently I am. That was a hilarious episode. I don't know if we still have that on archive somewhere. I wish we could like re-upload it and put it on this
honestly,
page because
yes, I wish we could find it somewhere.
That was an hour of hilarious.
I will never forget
the poor baffled government operator sitting there trying to figure out where I needed to be directed to was just
that part. The part where you called, which one? I believe it was the FBI. I believe it was the FBI you called, and they pick up the phone, and the first thing I hear is, "Thank you for calling the FBI. How may I help you?" And I'm sitting there going, yes. "Oh my God, we just got outsourced." you know, and I don't mean that in a negative
I
way.
think
It's
the
just
best part, yeah, I think the best part is when I called DHS and they rerouted me to the local Kansas branch, and we got this guy from one of the like National Guard bases who had his voicemail, and we're like, I don't want to get arrested for supposedly filing a false DHS claim, so we're just gonna kind of hang up.
yeah, yeah. I think the next one that I was favored is I think it was CIA. I think it was CIA
Yeah.
that you ended up calling, and the woman was nice and very
Mhm.
intelligent, and she wasn't for sure exactly where we needed to go for our our information.
Paycheck.
So yeah, she patched us through to this other guy, and as soon as you got the words, yeah, I'm here to collect my money for supporting the, blah, blah. I mean, he didn't say anything other than and click, and so at this point I'm laughing because I can't believe the guy just hung up on us. Then again, I'm sitting there thinking about what we just asked him.
Yeah.
So I was like, he probably thought it was a prank call, and unfortunately, I hope the
We were being
reception.
dead serious.
Yeah, I hope she didn't get fired for that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I hope
um,
not either. It was a great experience that of like I said, it was just a whole hour of uh I wish we could find
oh,
that one.
Oh, and when we called George W. Bush administration, that was another good one called the White House. The voicemail we got was classic. It was pretty much a due to high volumes of calls.
I
I'm sitting there thinking, well, he is the president of the United
would
States,
hope he
so
has a high volume of calls. That's how we know he's doing his job.
right, due to high volume of call, he can't take your call right now. But if you leave a message, it will be addressed in the time that it was gotten. And I'm like, oh, do we even really want to leave this message? I don't think we did. I don't think we actually left a
No, we
message,
didn't. I
but
don't think so.
yeah, because it was Bush administration, and everyone knows how I feel about the Bush administration. So,
I haven't been happy about the past two, so I'm Obama or Bush, so I can't. Yeah, I
oh,
I haven't noticed the difference personally.
the only difference, honestly, that I think I have seen is there's been, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, but it's not really something you can say in a good way. I, you know, I think the only real reason why it's the biggest difference is how many people claim to still like Obama, and how many people actually really liked Obama compared to Bush, which was no one really liked Bush.
Yeah. Well, it's
and
just one of those things that you look at the 2008 election compared to this last one we had in 2012. Okay, how bad do you have to be that your policies that people have gotten so don't feel how disingenuous your policies are when you almost got beat by Mitt Romney.
yeah, and the sad part about that, I know a lot of people who were just like, Mitt's not a president. He's a lot of things, but he's not a president. And then, like you said, you see how close that vote ended up being. And you're sitting there going, that
And
tells you.
for Republicans that actually fielded a candidate that wasn't batshit crazy like Rick Santorum, was charismatic and actually knew what they were talking about, we wouldn't be talking about Barack Obama being the president. We'd be talking about this Republican candidate that's in the figment of my imagination.
The sad part is, during the whole thing, of course, I knew Obama was going to run again, so I automatically said I'm not voting Democratic. Sorry. I didn't. It's nothing at that point in time. There was nothing against him personally. It was just I didn't agree with all of his policies. So I was like, whatever. I don't agree with all of his policies. I'm not going to vote for him. So then the GOP primaries come up, and I'm sitting there looking at who they've got. And honestly, the one that I would have liked to have seen actually get there to go against Obama was, and you may hate me for this, but I can't help it. He was another Texan.
Oh no, Rick
So,
Perry!
oh, yeah. Yeah, I was going, come on, Rick. Oh, he got defeated. Okay, well. You
I,
know,
I was
but
kind of going for Ron Paul, but I didn't see that one coming to fruition when Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate, is who I ended up voting for. Who, out of curiosity, you don't have to share if you don't want to. That's your choice. But I'm just curious who you voted for. Please don't say Mickey
uh,
Mouse.
don't say who.
Mickey Mouse.
Oh no, no, no. Uh, no, I don't think I would want him in there either, Walt Disney. But I'm just saying, honestly, I'm trying. I think I don't even think I really. I'm trying to remember exactly who I voted for because
That's bad.
that's yeah. I know I voted third party. I think I just struck at random, honestly.
Eeny, meeny, miny, Green Party.
Yeah, and I don't even think Ralph Nader ran this time around, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I couldn't.
I think he did, but I can't be for sure. It was kind of fuzzy.
Right, yeah. But I mean, see, he's who I voted for the last couple of times,
Mhm.
just to be different. Someone says, "Well, why would you vote for a third party?" If you don't like the other two, why
If you
would
don't,
you even waste your vote voting
right,
for one?
exactly. And,
Yeah,
well, then they
or
say, well, why are you wasting your vote on someone who wouldn't win? Well, he would win if you voted for him and voted your convictions as opposed to just voted who would win.
right. And the sad part is I know people who just walk in there, hit the straight ticket button, either or. They don't even know who's running. Like Mickey Mouse could be running as a freaking Republican, and they would still hit straight Republican, and they're,
That's the thing that when I was in college doing political science, that's the one thing that always got me was that the number one identifying factor for people, the number one decision is what they vote, the way they vote, has nothing to do with their personal policies most of the time, has nothing to do with any of that stuff that you would think would be what would be people's deciding factors. No, it's if they have an R or a D by their name.
yep. And that's that to me is sad. And there was actually when I was still living at Edible, we had local elections, which they have those I think it's like every 4 years, 2 to 4 years, and I went in there and I knew some of the candidates personally because obviously it's a local election, so living there and working there, you get to meet these people. And I was looking down the ballot box, and I had a mixed ballot. I mean, there were some people who I knew that were good, and they were Republican. Some of them were Democrat. You know, so I picked based on what I felt that they were going to do based on them, not so much their party. The D and R, I, G, C. Don't ask what the C stands for because I'm not sure which anymore. So, some say constitutional, some say something else. But, to me, it doesn't really matter based on party. It shouldn't base on party. I'm labeled an independent, not because I'm part of the independent party. Mainly because they basically can't classify me. So therefore, it's
Well,
just
sometimes
independent.
that's the best is you're independent minded enough and you think enough about your own political views that that no party fits you and you're willing to go on that limb to be truly independent to think for yourself.
Right. And which I think if more people did that, we wouldn't be in the rut we're in now with the
Right.
Democrats and Republicans. But I think we got what two independents, two ayes. Bob
Congress?
Leeper, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Leeper, and I can't remember who the other guy is, but there is
Yeah, I
another
can't.
one.
I know we've got like a handful of them. I should know them, but I don't.
The only reason why I remember Leeper is because he's literally a leaper. He was a Democrat, then a Republican, then now he's independent. So I mean, but I'm not saying anything that's a bad thing because if you start out as one party and then you realize you screwed up, then you
Yeah.
switch to another party, you realize they're not really fitting you either. You go to that independent spot, you pretty much figured out that what, yeah, the party system's not working for me. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, I think we've gone on this little rant tangent a little bit enough, so we're going to go ahead and skip to our next topic. I know this was something that I'd only come up across in April, very recently at the beginning of the month, that I kind of wanted to touch on. I do have a little video, so hopefully this works. I know we've been having some fun dealing with it, so let me take the time to get this all fun and set up here. And I'm going to run a video, and then we will screen share. There we go. And then we will go from there. Let me get time to switch. Hopefully this works. Michael will be able to tell me if the volume for this video works.
As we watch the spinning wheel of death in the corner here.
So worried about my computer crashing, I would I'd have, give me one sec, and then watch us crash or something very bad like that. Flip over and put your Twitter page back on while I wait for this to reload and all that jazz. We will cross our fingers and hope the internet does not die on us again. Oh, there we go. It did reload, so let's try this again.
There is an ugly battle being waged at the University of Toronto. It's a battle of the sexes, and it includes allegations of hate speech, free speech, bullying, harassment, even violence. Avery Haynes is here now with tonight's Inside Story. Avery.
Ward University higher education, historically a hotbed of political activism and idealism, where new ideas are born, where debate is welcome, and where politics are challenged. So this may surprise you.
What we want at a university is not just different body types, but different viewpoints, different worldviews.
The comments hardly seem controversial. A victim is a victim is a victim. Two authors speak about equality in a small windowless room on campus at U of T. Their voices often drowned out by the shouts and chants from the hallway. Right outside the door, dozens of protesters try to disrupt the event.
Got the problem of a double standard, which is, double standards underlie this entire conversation.
Here's why there's such controversy. The event is sponsored by a men's rights association. The topic of the event, misandry, the discrimination against and hatred of men.
Misandry is there, so you're exposing a group to hatred.
Just 20 minutes into the discussion, the fire alarm is pulled. The crowd inside is escorted outside, where the protesters unleash venom.
It's all right, great. So get the out of your Shame on you. I don't have a penis, that's why. That's the only reason. It's not, but that's the way of the world. You don't experience it the same way that I do every goddamn day.
Before this event started, the debate was more civil.
We do definitely have a problem with largely people who aren't part of of our campus community coming on and spreading these kind of messages about hate?
I think they're misguided, but I think they're well within their rights to protest. The only time we have problems are when they become violent or commit harassment, like they did, the group did back in November.
Ian Dwyer is referring to this. Violence broke out when protesters tried to stop an on-campus speech by controversial author Warren Farrell last November, a speech about the boy crisis in education. The U of T administration officially recognizes the men's rights group. The student union, on the other hand, wants them kicked off campus. If you are only going to accept people to have their voices heard on campus, if you believe in what they're saying, then it's a dangerous game to be playing.
What we believe is that free speech ends when hate speech begins. And there was a discussion about justifying rape. How there's different types of rape, and there's one type of criminal rape and accidental rape, and how a woman is mind raping a man, and thus he couldn't help himself from raping her. So it's okay.
The student union says this group may look harmless, but what they're doing online is anything but.
They've been putting photos up of outspoken women on campus on their website. They hope they get what's coming to them.
They're referring to this, a Texas-based website called Voice for Men. Under the heading of featured offenders, women at the U of T protests are outed for being bigots. A link to longer stories on the women says, take note of how easy it is to track these people down and document their actions. The website also grabs some of the protesters' Twitter feeds, like this one. Political position, kill all men, hail Satan.
We are absolutely 100% opposed to violence. We have no patience for it. We don't think it's a legitimate tool of political change.
The U of T student union says female students are scared. Your feeling is that the university should ban this group from being on campus?
Yes.
And why are you hesitant to say yes?
I feel I'm going to be targeted afterwards.
Do you really?
You're really dummy. The author, people.
Both sides feel harassed and bullied by the other, and neither shows any sign of backing down.
They seem to be wanting to bully us into silence, which is really kind of disgusting and deplorable.
We're still going to show up. We're still going to name names, even if they are willing to go online and harass and call for violence against us.
So far, the U of T administration has not agreed to the student union's request to kick the men's rights groups off campus. The protesters say they will continue their campaign against the MRAs.
Theoretically, though, a university is a place for an exchange of ideas, discussion, debate, all of that, but there is a lot of anger here.
There is. It's kind of surprising to me that we're at this point where somehow that men's rights, the issues that face men, and there are issues that face men about custody issues, about suicide rates, about the boys' education crisis, which we touched on the Inside Story earlier, that somehow that's taking away from women or attacking women. I think it's shameful to me that women and men can't talk about their individual problems without it being against somebody else.
Exactly. All right, thank you for that. Avery can be reached, by the way, on Twitter, the address @City Avery. The Inside Story can be seen every Tuesday and Thursday on City News at 6 and 11. All segments are up on our website, citynews.ca.
Just a little clip that was done by City News on the incident on the University of Toronto campus, dealing with both an incident that had happened there earlier back in December, where they had actually had a speaker, which they do have the actual footage, both of the protests, where the protesters attempted to keep people from going to one of these seminars. They also have a video clip of the seminar, the actual content, which is really, yeah, I watched it myself. It was like a almost 2-hour long seminar, and I can't really find what was so offensive about it. But anyway, the Toronto police actually had to be brought in to remove the protesters out of the way so they could actually have this event. Fast forward to the event that happened just recently in April, where the group was having the discussion, and seemed quite peaceful, quite agreeable. I mean, I also watched the video of that seminar as well. Nothing that, you know, seemed to support their allegations of hate speech or that these people were suggesting violence against women or anything of that particular nature. And in the middle of the interview, they pulled the fire alarms to stop the ongoing discussion that was going on as part of their protest. Now, I personally, from this issue of men's rights, I don't subscribe to either feminism or the men's rights movement, because I personally believe that there are issues on both sides that need to be fixed, for both sexes, for both genders, both male and female, about things that are unequal and need to be fixed. But as far as this whole situation that's going on in Toronto, it really troubles me, because if you have a breakdown of discourse, then nothing ends up changing. There are issues, female issues, that I'm not as familiar with. I'm sure there's plenty that feminists could bring up, but I also do know from the research that I have done that there are also male issues, as well as, you know, the most common one that's brought up, like the draft, where only men can be drafted, despite that both male and females can give service to the military, both voluntarily, but females cannot be drafted. There's also the issues with the suicide rate, where male suicide rates are way higher than males. Same with workplace incidences of death and injury, and the fact that you are 40% more likely to get a higher prison sentence as a male than a female. I mean, there's issues on both sides of this, and my confusion is why people, these groups of people, find it so abhorrent that these issues are being talked about. And there are some allegations of targeting and everything like that, but I've also gone to the site that was mentioned there in the video about how they were targeting. There was no actual incidents of saying you should go follow this person and kill them or hurt them or harm them or injure them in any way. It was just, notice how you can follow these people, and when they do things that are like what they did at the University of Toronto campus, how easy it is to, how open they are about, you know, their bigotry, which, let's be honest, what they were doing, that I don't know about you, Michael, I kind of see that as bigotry, in my opinion. Someone is trying to have free discourse about issues that they feel, and you don't like those, so rather than have to listen to them or have to deal with their free speech, you decide that you want to silence them. And I think that's wrong, and I kind of given my points in some of those topics that have come up and showed this video, and I was wondering if you had anything you wanted to add, and we could maybe have a little bit of a back and forth about this issue.
You know, I don't know a lot about, I especially don't know the situation in Toronto. Obviously, I mean, I keep up with international news, but this is not something that I normally go around looking for. And I know Toronto is also in a different, we'll just say, different area. So, you know, I'm not 100% sure of what has caused this concept of where they feel threatened by this group. And I'm assuming the speakers, from what I gathered of the story, was these speakers were asked to come and speak to students by I'm assuming it was a men's group.
Yes.
Okay. I was wanting to make sure I was 100% right on that. You know, and we have the same thoughts here, and I'm assuming probably there as well, as far as there are issues that are on both sides of the fence, whether you're male or female. And like you said, they need to be addressed. You know, there are some things that men can get away with that women can't, but then there's things that women can get away with that men can't. And, you know, I personally feel that in the view of what they were doing, it is wrong. If you want to demonstrate against something, that's fine. I feel that they had the right to assemble. They had the right to stand outside with their signs and chant and do whatever they wanted to as far as that part was concerned. The pulling of the fire alarm, the harassment, the just downright, just the downright, being belligerent and going after these people for wanting to attend a seminar. And like I said, I've not seen the videos, so I'm not, you've seen them, so you know what they're about and what was said. But from what I gathered of the story, I mean, from what little the speakers that I did get to hear, I basically didn't hear anything that said, inequality is right. Even though it was put on by a men's group, I didn't hear anything that basically said men are superior to women. I didn't hear anything that was just over the top sexism. I'm leaning more towards the thought of they had the right to demonstrate, but it's how they demonstrated that is definitely not something that we should accept. I don't know what your thought is on that part, but
as far as to give you a little more clarification, one of the speakers, when they were talking about Mr. Farrell, one of the things that they found controversial is in one of his books that he had spoken about. He used to be a feminist himself and found that there was, a lot of these issues and became more, a middle ground approach would probably be more acceptable here, folks. One of the things he brought up is that they call this thing where he, supports rape, or, the thing that they brought up where, that one of the student union people brought up that that a woman eggs it on and therefore it's justified that the man rapes her. It's a little more complicated and a little more nuanced than they make it sound in that interview. The thing that from what I've read and what I've understood is the topic that he had brought up is that when a woman gives all these social cues to a male that that they want to have sex and that they will have sex, and then later goes around and tries to turn that as it was rape, is not rape. Where if a woman continues, doesn't say no or anything like that, and just keeps bringing the cues that invite that she wants sex and gives no justification or anything like that she doesn't want it, that shouldn't be considered rape. This kind of double standard that if you touch someone or a female that that could be at any time construed as uninvited, that you have to back off. But the double standard that's kept, that if the sex is uninvited, that should be just okay, and that there's a double standard between what is defined as rape for males and females. Especially, I believe now, I've heard this, but I haven't been able to clarify this, so I don't want to make it jump on a boat, but to my understanding that in the UK and some states that it is by law impossible for a female to rape a male, but a male can rape a female just because they have a dick.
And that, to me, if that's true, I mean, like you said,
right.
You haven't found anything to clarify that. So before we jump on that bandwagon, I would like to say that I do believe that men can be raped. I do believe that women raping men is less likely in some instances, and I would go as far as almost say most instances. I do believe that the averages would go in the favor that most that men rape women more so than the vice versa. But rape is rape, regardless of who initiates it. But where I do see the double standard is, and this is this is a different case altogether, and it deals with a different topic somewhat, but where someone has claimed rape, and yet they lied about several factors that, had they not lied or had they got caught, would not have led to the supposed rape. And I say supposed simply because there are things that transpired that would lead one to believe that this particular person wanted to have sexual intercourse, and then after having it, then and only then did they, by means of contacting the police, were able to say that they were raped. And there are many instances where men have been misled, thinking that that it was wanted, and then afterwards finding out that, oh no, she's now saying it was not wanted. And I want to say that society has taken a stance to where if a woman claims she's raped, they just automatically assume she was.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of instances, and I'm not going to say that this is every instance, because obviously there are times when men will rape women, and they have said no, they've done everything possible, and it still happens. And, that is a horrible, to me, rapists are one of the most, I just can't fathom why you would want to. I personally don't understand why a rapist does it. But at the same time, I feel like society is condemning one more so than the other. I also feel like they consider one person's opinion over the other. They don't look at the facts. The facts may indicate that, well, okay, she came on to him, she bought him some drinks, she asked him to go to her place. Everything leads you to believe that she was in fact wanting this, and then you find out later, then of course, she claims rape even though it really wasn't rape. And I'm not saying that, and I know I'm splitting hairs somewhere, I'm sure, but rape and this particular subject of sexism is a very hard topic to discuss, simply because there are so many variables that you can't account for. There are so many things that changes how you perceive it. In the instance, had it been a man standing at the podium saying that, women were subservient to men and they needed to just stay in the kitchen, I'm pretty sure that there would even be a lot of men that would say, now wait a minute, that's diehard sexism right there. That's just not right. And yet there's a guy standing there obviously saying that, sometimes it's not, and I think he worded it wrong, honestly. I do believe he worded it wrong. I think instead of saying that they sexify themselves in the sense that they are putting the effort into having a guy follow them and do rape or whatever, I think he would have became better off had he said that, there are instances where women use themselves as a sex object to invite men in and then claim rape. Basically setting the guy up. Mm-hmm. I think had he portrayed it as few women do this, but they are out there, I don't think that would have been as bad as it had sounded how he put it. Because he basically made it sound like we have a subculture that's all they do is go out and try to claim rape. And I don't
think that was the point he was trying to make, but it ended up being
misconstrued that way.
Yes.
Yeah. It was misconstrued that's what he was saying. And I know what he was saying, and like you said, we can read between the lines. There are some people that can't, and and that's understandable, but this is a difficult subject regardless.
And bringing back to that one point that you had talked about rape between the sexes, is that the CDC had done a report. Let me see here. I have the PDF setting around, but I don't have it setting on the actual. They did a report back in 2010 on this, where they did a a year study, a 12-month study, where they found that the numbers between males and females, as far as rape is concerned, is actually closer than you might think. It is the case where females are raped more than males are, but the numbers are actually a lot closer, where it shows that 1,270,000 estimated number of victims, whereas with males the number is 1,267,000. So it's only like a 3,000 difference. I mean, yes, females are raped more than males, but it's not as large of a gap as one would make it sound like.
Right, and and I know we're discussing primarily the rape issue. I mean, there are other issues dealing with work, money, there's just other things in general. Like I said, there's so many variables when it comes to sexism. There are those who will say that a woman deserves more money in certain things than a man does, vice versa. Women don't deserve to be in certain fields where others do, men do. Like you said, the military debate, obviously as a man, as soon as you turn 18, you
get selective service.
Yeah, you get a selective service card. In fact, I have mine. A lot of people don't even keep them.
I didn't.
Yeah, I keep mine, and why, I don't know, but I do. And that's something that my wife made mention was, and she, my wife, obviously she's female, and that's one thing she never understood, was that I got a selective service card, but she didn't. And then I said, well, that's because they don't, women just don't get a selective service number. And she actually was offended that she didn't get one. She was actually offended that, well, ain't that considered sexism? Well, yeah, it is, kind of, But when a war breaks out and I'm selected, you're not.
Yeah, I would like to be in her position where I don't get selected for selective service, because as one person put it, why should someone have to be forced to take up arms and sent off to a faraway land to fight against a group of people who have never offended them?
Well, and not just that, but if you're selective service, it's kind of like what happened in Vietnam. If they drafted you, you were cannon fodder. They didn't really care if you lived or not. If you were you volunteered and signed up, they took great pride in you. If you were just drafted off the street, then yeah, you were basically thrown on the front line and said, hey, we'll help you out a little bit, but we're not going to get,
Well, welcome to conscription.
Right, yeah, welcome to the American version of Russian, conscriptionism. So, and I mean, she was offended that she couldn't even be selected. I mean, granted, she wouldn't want to go, but at the same time, she was just offended that she was female and couldn't get it. And there's things like that. And like you said, women can volunteer. Why can't they be selected for it? And of course, on the opposite side of that, there are some men who feel that they shouldn't even be allowed military roles as far as active combat roles. Now, they don't, not necessarily saying they can't be mechanics or nurses or other communication officers or things like that, but their big thing is they shouldn't be in combat roles. Again, I don't prescribe to that view, but, I mean, I do feel that if they can join voluntarily, I don't see why they can't be selected as well. But, there are some that would argue that that was an age-old tradition, that, women just weren't allowed to serve in the military back then, and it's kind of carried on over, and, so it's, that's a different variable. We talked about the rape variable. One of the things that irritated me was that my wife's insurance is cheaper than mine just because she's female.
Yep, it's the same thing that happens with car insurance and things like that, and it has nothing to do with necessarily discrimination. Excuse me, but like I said, it goes back to that thing of the gap between workplace incidences of injury or death. Men tend to be in those fields that have more hazards to them, and that's part of the gender issues that go around of why aren't more females in this, and how the tendency is that if you're in a hazardous job or in some type of thing like that, that it tends to be more male dominated, whether that is a case of discrimination or not is not necessarily true, but it's what happens.
And that's one thing that I know of several places, especially locally here, that you see more men than females in that job, and then there's actually jobs where you see more females than men. And it's not so much that they discriminate, it's just that if you were to sit down with all the applications that they receive, you would see in certain jobs more men apply than women, and in other jobs more women apply than men. And it's not that they don't want to hire hire a particular, we'll just say a particular sex. It's more of, well, who's more qualified and how many applicants do I have? So
yeah, and it's also the same thing that also sometimes happens with the pay gap. That's another thing that comes up, is that for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 75 cents. And what they tend to do with those statistics is they'll lump in all the jobs together, and sometimes these more hazardous paying jobs that men take pay more because they're hazardous.
Right.
And
and
also,
I agree. I mean,
break it down.
I mean, that's one thing that I don't like, even about the statistics from the CDC, is they estimated that there are thousands of rape cases that are never even reported by women or men. So
yeah,
to have an accurate account, to actually just sit there and say, yes, you're right, you make more than her, or she makes more than you, women make less, men make more. You can't accurately do it unless you polled every single job out there. So, and that's one thing I hate about statistics on political, shows and on the news. They're like, oh, 60% of Americans. I don't remember receiving this survey. So apparently,
lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah. So apparently, I was not part of this. I'm not part of America. You all lost my email. I did not get this survey. So how can 60% of Americans agree or disagree with it?
It's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things. I've never really paid much attention to polls anyway, because I subscribe to the Penn-Jillette theory of polling. Why do you care what other Americans think? The only thing that should matter is facts and logic and everything. Who cares if 90% of people feel it's okay to jump off a bridge? Would you?
Well, I mean, ain't that the question that you always got as a kid? The statement was, if all your friends jumped off the bridge, would you jump too? And so pretty much, when you watch these polls, and my favorites, and a lot of people miss this, but then usually it's on the right corner, very bottom, and it has this little number and this little phrase, and it says -/positive
margin
3%.
of error. Yes.
Margin of error. And I'm sitting there thinking, who's the 3% and why is there a margin of error? So, what they don't tell you is they have a control group, and basically that's, well, I mean, a control group can be any number of people. You can have 5, you can have 10, you could have 100. But theoretically, let's say they decided to do a political poll on, I don't know.
What pants you like.
Yeah, what pants you like. And they get 10 people, and 3 of the people like this one, and the other, 7 like the other one. So then they put the poll up, well, 70% of Americans like this.
Plus or minus 5%.
Yeah, plus or minus 3 or 5%. So you're telling me that 70%, man, how many people did do this survey? 10?
Mm-hmm.
So 10 people is all of American percentage. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
We have some issues to be discussing.
Well, I know we're supposed to stop at 1:30, but due to technical difficulties, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to extend it for another 15 minutes to 1:45, and I'm not sure what we're going to fill the time with. I know we wanted to we were going to talk about the bombings, the bombing that happened during the Boston Marathon, but I mean, a lot of events have changed since then. Namely, they got both the suspects. One's dead, one's captured. I know you know geography and history and the wonderful things about your beloved Russia, but the terrorists are from Chechnya, and immediately that's when you know things have gone bad.
And the funny part about that is they actually called the suspect's father, who's still in Russia. He's actually in Russia. He's not in Chechnya. Now, they are originally from Chechnya, which anyone who knows Chechnya understands that is a former Soviet republic that attempts periodically to break away from Russia. And you know, the Russians usually just send a few thousand troops and some tanks and just kind of crush everything, and then they leave. The Chechens rebuild, they get mad, they throw some more Molotov cocktails, the Russians just send some more tanks back in, and you know, we start the whole process over again. So, you know, Chechnya is not exactly and I'm slow to call it a country, but we'll go ahead and say that, you know, it's a country that is surrounded in warfare, and it's kind of like the old Irish Republic, I guess you could say, the IRA. You know, they're wanting independence, and they're wanting it hard. Unfortunately, everyone around them's pretty much gotten used to the fact that they're just going to be part of the country forever. So, you know, the fact that they're Russian. I'll take this opportunity to mention someone that I watch on YouTube, and I know he'll never see this, but if he did, it would be funny. Anyone who knows Boogie2988 and watches any of his live shows or anything, he also does commentary. He does a lot of video gaming. He's just a joy to watch. If you haven't seen Boogie2988, you need to watch him. But he did a Boston Marathon update special kind of deal. And he made a remark that offended some people. I thought it was funny. He thought it was funny at first. He still thinks it's funny. But he basically said that, you know, America, video gaming companies tend to go with whoever the bad guy is at the time. After 9/11, look at Call of Duty. Where did we go? We ended up killing, you know, Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah.
And then he said, hey, you know what? You know, after this, we found out the Russians bombed us, so, you know, hey, video game industry, guess what? We're going back to killing Ruskies. So,
well, you might argue that they're already out ahead of that, because what have the last two Call of Duties been? Massive Russian conspiracy to invade America. So maybe they were actually ahead of the game this time.
Yep, they predicted what was going to happen before it happened, and you know, so, but you know, I know a lot of people are basically they're just chucking it up to they're saying they're terrorists. They're not belonging to any known group. They're saying that they learned their bomb making skills obviously because Chechens are fighting a civil war, so to speak, an undeclared civil war. So they're kind of like the IRA. You know, the IRA teach children as young as 5 how to make an incendiary device. You know, so the Boston Marathon was a great tragedy. I do believe that it is something to consider, something to think about. The loss of life could have been a whole lot worse. The bombs that were made were, I won't say low grade, because that would insinuate they didn't really do a good job. No, they done an excellent job. They done exactly what they were intended to do, and that was to kill and injure people surrounding them. So, but you know, my first thought is if this had been a true terror organization, a true terrorist attack, things would have been a lot worse. They don't use small bombs. They don't believe in small ordinances. They believe mass amounts of casualties, meaning that we are talking, we're talking about a bomb that's used to kill hundreds, not a handful.
Right.
And the next worst fear is, with what's going on in Syria over their chemical weapons. How many of those chemical weapons have managed to actually escape Syrian borders? If a terrorist organization such as the Taliban or Al-Qaeda was able to get their hands on a stash of Syrian-made chemical weapons, what happened in Boston would basically be would be dwarfed by it, because we're talking, if I remember correctly, they're talking like sarin gas. We're talking high-grade, former Russian military chemicals. So, it's sad what happened in Boston, but at the same time, we need to also be thankful that it was not as bad as it could have been. It could have been a whole lot worse, and that's sad to say. But I guess you could say I'm trying to be optimistic on a bad incident. But it's, as I was discussing with another friend of mine as well, though. We got to also be thankful that this is not something that happens all the time. There are countries where, we lost 3 and had 175 wounded, and that, since 9/11, that's really not, civilian attacks is really not a big thing here. In other countries, that's just another day for them. We lost 50, in some newscasts that you see, the 50 dead, 110 wounded today, tomorrow 75 dead,
Yeah.
So again, I'm trying to be an optimist on a bad situation.
Oh yeah.
But between it could have been worse, and we live in a country to where we don't have to wake up every day wondering, if I go to the local Walmart, am I going to be blown to smithereens? If I go to Taco Bell and order a taco, am I going to die because a suicide bomber just decides that's the day he didn't like the taco? I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking on to that, we live in an incredibly safe country, and horrible segue moment. How did you feel about the whole media hysteria between Fox News and MSNBC, where Fox News was constantly trying to say, well, obviously it must have been those damn Arabs who did it, and MSNBC, who was dead set that it must have been some right-wing nut job that was obviously behind all of this, and the back and forth that happened until we finally figured out who was really behind it, yet none of them are like, oops, my bad.
Well, and the funny part about that is we were watching, what were we watching? I was actually at work when all this was transpiring, and I was at lunch when I was able to actually see all the updates. CNN, that's what it was. We were watching CNN, which is no better than Fox or MSNBC, I know, but, excuse me. They were actually reporting what Fox was saying and what MSNBC was saying about the funny differences between the two. And, of course, so you have Fox saying that, it's Arabs. You have MSNBC saying that it's them right-wing, NRA members trying to cause problems. And I'm sitting there, and a buddy of mine's sitting there with me, and we're talking about it, and I look at him and go, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. He says, what? I said, it's the government. They did it.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, well, I figure if they can say somebody else did it, I can say it too. So, you know what? We got Arabs, we've got right-wing nationalists, and now we got the government. I said all 3 of them have done it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I don't subscribe to that, but I mean it's no more or less accurate than the bullshit other people were spouting off at the time.
Exactly. So, I mean, I wasn't really saying the government did it, but I was just saying that, obviously they don't know who done it, but they're going to tell you they do. So
yeah.
Here's my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm just as right as they are.
Exactly.
And so,
That,
But
that I think was the whole saddest part of that whole thing is like you're not even going to wait and wait for the facts to come out or anything. You're just going to just, as Stephen Colbert likes to say, from your heart.
from your heart, yep. And the best part about the whole ordeal was, and I say the best part, but the weird part about the whole ordeal was not only were they inaccurate as far as who did it, they couldn't get their numbers right. I mean, I would literally tune in 50 people injured, 75 people injured, 110 people injured.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was sitting there thinking, well, you should know how many are injured from just the people who are there.
Well, not only that, but I mean, they're going based on the police reports and everything, and those are always going to change in the middle of an ongoing event. And this is what I hate about the 24-hour news cycle is you have these people who want to get you just blam, blam, here's what's going on, without actually setting down and waiting for things to calm down so they can actually get their facts straight. It's one of those things of I don't think that they should have been focusing as much as they did on that. I mean, sure, get us the information, let us know this has happened, and then move on. I mean, it's going to be a long time before this information comes out, and then you end up with this incident where CNN said that, oh, look, they finally got the suspect, and then an hour later they're having to say, whoops, wrong guy, sorry. I mean, just chill, please. Chill.
Well, and another thing, and this is something that even after 9/11 happened, that I truly feel sometimes the media gets on such a blitz, on such a frenzy, that they don't really care about the people who are affected by it. There were instances where they done interviews with the families of the ones who passed away, and it was just constant coverage. It was just constant throwing it in their face. And I truly feel that sometimes the news puts their ratings above the people.
Yeah.
Especially, here there was an 8-year-old that died, and his family has to live with that. And to have it thrown in their faces every morning they wake up and every night when they go to bed, it's hard to believe that we have gotten to a point to where we allow the media to just literally ransack someone's life.
Oh yeah.
And the even sadder part is that we're just used to it. That we're actually just used to. Never mind the fact that this family's lost a kid or this family's lost a daughter or a loved one. It's like it's not so much we're desensitized. It's like we just feed on it. So the next thing you know, it's this family just lost somebody, but now for the next week we're going to keep replaying the images and keep replaying the conversation. We want to just drill it home to you, and it's like, why don't we be a little bit more considerate of the family? And okay, you're right, I want to know what happened. Okay, we caught the 2 guys that did it. One's dead, one's in the hospital. Okay, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the results. I mean, I hate that people died. I hate that the people got injured, and I'm glad we got the people that did it.
Yeah.
There's more stuff that's going on in the world than just that.
Exactly. Well, we're right at the 1:45 mark. So, any closing comments that you have, Michael, before we take off the air?
I've been thinking about some of the stuff that's been going on, and a lot of world events that's been transpiring, and the whole me obviously running for office has totally I've reevaluated a lot of my political ideas, my philosophies, and it's made me think a lot more about some of the things that I've previously said and done, some of the former ideas that I've gotten in my head about, well, the government always does it, I mean, they killed JFK. So, and I do subscribe that they did kill JFK, but that's neither here nor there, so we're going to leave that one alone. But, through the process of it all, I just like, to know, I just like people to know that, I'm a moderate progressive and an independent because I do not feel that in the current system, in the current society, that we can allow either extreme to rule over us. I do not feel that we can justify things that happen just simply because of one person's thoughts or actions. That we as a society have to realize that we cannot make everyone happy, but what we can do is meet in the middle and just accept that it's kind of the whole idea of agree to disagree, if you will. You know, I don't agree with everything you say, but in the words of John Locke, I don't agree with agree with you, but I would gladly give my life so that you have the right to say it. And I do prescribe to that point of view. I do believe that, you know, even though I don't agree with what the liberals say and are trying to do, I would gladly, you know, give my life and to ensure that they have the right to say what they want to. And unfortunately, as I have found out on the Huffington Post and on other areas with the liberals, some, not all, let me rephrase, some diehards do feel that you know, that ideology is flawed, and I truly feel that it's not flawed. It's just some people may not agree with it, but you know, in doing this show and doing hopefully in doing other shows that maybe we can find you know, get more people drawn into it, get some questions and answers, and then who knows, you know, maybe I can actually use this as a political tool myself by getting people to listen to these things, and you know, but I just enjoy being able to get back to the debate again, because debating is something that I've always enjoyed. I do not enjoy arguments, and I do not enjoy having people basically ram their beliefs down my throat. And unfortunately, in most debate sites and debate things that I've been into, that is basically all that's happened, is you have a handful of people who actually debate, and the greater majority are basically people who could care less about debating. So.
I'll close with mine. I mean, as someone who is not running for office and does not have to close their views so tightly as to avoid the backlash anymore, I personally subscribe to a lot of what Michael says, though I tend to like feeling that there should be an excess of liberty, that people should have the opportunity to do what they feel is right and not force their ideologies on other people and everything. That in with a government that we should have all these divergent views, that the best opportunity that can be given is in a government that does less and allows people to do of their own volition. And I think that leads to a government that is much better, because instead of the government telling you what you need to do, that you have people who are willing to go out and do what is right and do what is needed for the betterment of society as a whole. Also, that I like these events like the Boston bombings and stuff like that. I think I found exactly how emotional I can be as a person. There's been a lot of events, that a lot of tragedies have happened over this past year, 2012 and into this year with the Sandy Hook tragedy and other things like that, where I've found that I'm more emotional than I like to think that I'm not, and that when I go into some of these political talks and these political debates of, feeling not necessarily just believing what I believe in, but also feeling that I am doing something that could lead to a better world. And I think that's what we all are striving to, hopefully, in the end, is that, to make lives better for everyone and to create a society where everyone can benefit from that. But I think we've overstayed our moment of exuberating our breath in front of people. So we're going to call this a night and let you get back to your lives. If you want to watch it, once again, Night Watch Show on YouTube. We'll have our recorded shows and our live shows. If you want to participate, hey, make sure to link up with us on Facebook, on Twitter. We have our Twitter accounts, which we'll have linked with this video. And if you want to join us in this conversation, feel free to. We'd love to have extra people on our show to talk, to debate, to discuss. Night Watch Politics at gmail.com, and we'll make sure to get you in our next Google Hangout. So with that, that'll end this at 5:51, a whole almost 30 minutes extra due to technical difficulties and us loving to talk to you. So with that, we'll end it here.
You know, right now there's been several issues. I've had several people make comments as far as one of my notes that I posted on Facebook. I'm going to touch lightly on that. I posted on Facebook my ideas as far as gay marriage, gay rights is concerned in Kentucky. I had a few people that felt that I kind of dodged the question by how I responded. So, you know, it's interesting how people.
Considering what I've heard, yeah. Considering what I've heard, at least you're not Tennessee, isn't it? Tennessee that's trying to pass all these like weird, really weird, like laws that if you start, you know, coming out as gay in the schools, and the teachers have to report it to your parents and stuff like that.
It may be Tennessee. I'm not familiar with a lot of their political run-ins, but I do believe it is Tennessee. It's either Tennessee or Missouri. I'll have to double check with it.
I'm pretty sure
I know.
It's just like
I know here in Kentucky, even like as I posted in my notes, you know, my personal opinion on gay rights is not my political opinion. And politically, it's really a subject that doesn't matter a whole lot in Kentucky, in the sense that Kentucky's already got a state amendment, constitutional amendment, that prohibits it. It was voted on back several years ago. I believe it's been at least 5 years ago now, that to make it a state amendment, it passed by referendum. So I feel that personally, I have nothing against, you know, gay marriage, gay rights, but on a political level, it's already been taken care of. There's nothing that I can do once a state amendment is made. It's going to take a whole lot to get it undone. So,
yeah.
You know, as some people will say, I'm dodging the question. I'm not really. It's already been done, taken care of. There's nothing.
It's one of those issues that yeah, there's nothing you can do about it immediately. You can state your opinion, and that's about all you can do, because at this point in time, there's not much you can really do about it.
Exactly, and I'm not trying to run my campaign based on personal, you know, just straightly on personal ideology. I want people to realize I'm a moderate. I'm not left wing, I'm not right wing, I'm not conservative, I'm not liberal. You know, I see myself as a moderate progressive. So instead of being the extreme of either or, I try to stay down the center line and try to take the best from both sides. But unfortunately, there's just some issues that there's not really a best of both sides. And
yeah.
Sometimes there's not even a best of one side. So, you know, it's a juggling act, and you know, I can personally say, I know that you've experienced it yourself. You know, everything you say, everything you do comes back to bite you one way or another. So it'll either help you or break you. And you know, that's one thing about doing these live shows, doing these podcasts and things, was, you know, I have to watch what I say, how I say it, because now people are listening. Now people are going to say, yeah, I remember that one time. And you know, that can make or break a campaign. I mean, my all-time favorite one that I like to quote a lot is Mr. Howard's war cry. And,
I think that's the most famous one.
And it is, and even though I enjoyed it, because I said, man, that just shows a lot of spunk. Apparently, the majority of the people thought it was a little overboard. So, you know,
well, the mic didn't exactly.
I enjoyed the heck
favorably.
out of it, so I enjoyed
it. Because his mic made it sound like it was some like wild banshee coming out.
Yeah, the microphone I think added the spook effect to it, so I can kind of understand why some people were like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
no, we can't do that." So,
but yeah, hopefully you'll be able to get to that 5% and maybe beyond, because I remember when I was running for office that, I mean, as soon as it became clear that I was going to be running and I was going to be on the ballot, the Republican who was running, who is the incumbent, immediately was coming to the state So now that we're back again after some technical difficulties of my internet, followed by my microphone, followed by life just hates us. We're back.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, at least I can say it was you and not me this time, because normally it's me. So.
Yeah, exactly. So where were we? I believe we were talking about your campaign when the internet decided to hate us.
Yes. Social media sites is about all I've really hit. I really have no intentions of making a campaign as far as, like most modern day political campaigners like to throw TV commercials, radio commercials. That takes a lot of time, effort, and money. And when you're working, a lot of money. And when you work 40+ hours as it is, finding time and effort and, of course, money to do
money being the key thing.
Yeah, money being the key thing, which I hate to say that, but it is. And someone has even already asked, they're like, well, do you plan on doing donations? And I'm sitting there thinking, eventually I probably will have to, but I'm trying to delay that as long as possible, because the more that I do by myself, the less I have to actually report back to the financial group of the campaign financial advisory groups. So.
Yeah. Well, there we now have on the screen share your Twitter, just so everyone can see it, and its loveliness and its generic backgroundness.
Yeah, I need to change that. Yeah, I was unfortunately just haven't gotten around to changing the background, but I did pretty good, I think, as far as my avatar and the.
It's a very classy picture. I definitely like your photography. Whoever did that.
Actually, my wife took the picture, and then I, of course, photoshopped it, because I'm putting all of my college learning abilities into making.
District representatives for the Libertarian Party and was saying, so what do I have to do to get you to put my yard sign on your front yard? And he said, and that kind of thing, that kind of scared that you might lose, and maybe it might not be me, but it's going to be someone. And it's one of those things that even if you don't win, it changes that person's opinion, so they might consider some of your views next time when they run for office. And it ended up being that he ended up supporting some of the school legislation we were putting through. We were trying to put in a limited amount of a school voucher system in the state of Kansas, so it's one of those things that you may not win the seat, you may not end up being the representative, but some of your ideas end up on the playing field.
Right, and one of the good things about starting where I'm starting, this is considered kind of a lower-based office in the sense that, obviously I'm not running for state senator or state House of Reps. This is, basically based in the districts of Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, I think that I know what areas my district covers, and I like to say that for the most part I have either lived in them, worked in them, or have friends that have remained in these areas, family that's remained in these areas. I spent 8 years in retail, so I know a lot of people on the basis of being able to talk to them. So I think that once the word gets out that my name's on the ballot, I'm hoping that maybe that kind of builds momentum. But in the end, and I've already been asked, do you expect to win? No, I don't expect to win, but I do expect, by me running, it does two things. First thing it does is, like you said, it will draw some of these people in my area to me saying, hey, what would it take for me to get you on my side? And then, like you said, you might get something passed through that you really agree with. The second thing is I am pictures. So
you know what? You are more successful than most college students, if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I went, 3 years in college dealing with visual communication, and there you go. That is the full extent of my job now. Dealing with graphics is making my own profile mugshot. So. But I'm enjoying I'm enjoying being able to get my voice out. I'm enjoying going out and talking to people. I've posted some questions online. I'm hoping people will comment on notes that I've posted on my Facebook and on my Tumblr. There was actually a question I posed asking people what they wanted me to basically run on. What they wanted my platform to be as far as what issues really matter to them. And, everybody's pretty much focused on three things. I tend to focus more on one issue at a time, but the three issues that I've really come across is education reform in Kentucky, which is just, to me, is a fundamental thing that we really need to discuss. Just to touch on it lightly, just this year, the governor, Beshear, has decided that Kentucky is going to follow suit with every other state and cut education by 6.8%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but we're talking several millions dollars that are not going to be reaching, our students now. The next two big issues that I was hit with was, gun control. No surprise there. And the last one I was hit with was, of course, the economy, which is still on everybody's mind, yes, and probably will be for another, 4, 5, 10 years from now. So, but
well, especially here with gun control, I know you wanted to talk about that earlier on, but I didn't know if there was anything else about your campaign you wanted to talk about, or